What if I told you that building systems and processes in your business could actually make you more miserable? Yeah, that your drive for success might just be trauma wearing a business suit. My guest today has seen behind the curtain of over 300 entrepreneurs, watched many businesses bloom, some marriages implode, a few mental healths crumble, and some businesses actually become prisons. He's about to expose the dark side of the entrepreneurial success that nobody talks about and reveal why the very systems you think will save you could potentially destroy everything that matters. Stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen, because this one's going to hurt. All right, what is up? What is up? What is up, my dark horse entrepreneurs? Today, let's say this. Eric's not your typical systems and processes guy. He's let's call him a truth teller. He's not afraid to call out the BS that is out there destroying entrepreneurs' lives. And today, he's here to share some uncomfortable truths about what's really happening when you try to systemize your way to freedom. And here's what's really crazy. 82% of CEOs are experiencing burnout. Nearly 2,000 of them alone last year quit, and 19 of them literally worked themselves to death while still in the office. And again, my guest here today has spent over 2 decades in the trenches watching entrepreneurs build their own prisons disguised as successful businesses. He's witnessed the toll it takes, not just on the businesses themselves, but on the sphere of influence of the entrepreneur, on their marriages, on their kids, and sometimes even their sanity. After managing over 1,000 employees and going deep with more than 300 entrepreneurs and executives, he's discovered something most business gurus will not tell you. Systematizing your business isn't enough if you're broken on the inside. He's the founder of Willity, and he's here to help you unlock what he calls your leadership superpowers, but it's not what you might think. This isn't about working harder or adding more systems. It's about transforming who you are as a leader before your success destroys everything that matters. When we talk about building a successful business, everyone preaches about systems and preaches about processes. You need systems, they say. Systematize everything, they say. But here's what no one's talking about. What happens when those systems start destroying the very magic that made your business special in the first place?
Yeah, it was such an interesting question that you're opening up with, because when you systematize the business, you could easily, if you do it the wrong way, you start to go on too strong. If you're a very systems oriented person, you want everything to run perfectly. Sometimes you can go overboard. Right. I don't often see this. Most of the folks I work with are just totally disorganized. Things are everywhere. They just basically keeping themselves afloat. But there's a far side on the other side where you have this huge most people can visualize this as a binder full of standard operating procedures. Mm-hmm. There's a couple companies, one company in the news recently that had binders and binders and binders full of process and procedure for the whole company. And they just decided to scrap it, start over with a very different model in their business. And this is a business of several thousand people. So it's a big undertaking to shift those expectations and behaviors. But when you get too systems focused, that can also be a problem. So that's why it was a very interesting question, because you take away the place where people have opportunity, where they can get creative, where you want to bring in people who are, yes, can follow the rules, can follow the instructions, but also so that they understand where they have leeway. You can't manage every minute of many people's hours and get the outcomes that you're looking for. That's really the dark side of creating systems and procedures, is if you go overboard, if you try to micromanage the situation and micro-target everything that needs to happen in the business, it can go sideways. On the flip side, a lot of businesses don't have those systems and procedures in place and kind of just let the chips fall where they may. And that might keep the business moving for some period of time, but that's where you can easily create a prison for yourself, because you're trying to keep all those plates spinning. You don't have the systems to keep the plates spinning for you.
You feel me? Eric's point about finding the balance really resonated with me. I've seen both extremes, the complete chaos of no systems to the rigid structure that absolutely kills creativity. It reminds me of the Waffle House, believe it or not. They actually have found that fascinating sweet spot right in the middle of those two extremes, because they have systems for everything. And I mean everything, including, wait for it, what to do if a car drives into their building. But here's what's brilliant. These systems weren't created because of some damn corporate boardroom. They evolved from real situations. Yeah, real problems that they faced. Each system has a story, and each system has a reason for existing. Yeah, that means they actually had a car driving to one of the buildings. And that's the key difference, isn't it? When systems emerge from actual needs versus when they're forced upon us from down on high because someone up in the corporate tower said, you need this. Yeah, it's like the difference between wearing a tailored suit versus trying to squeeze your narrow ass into someone else's clothes. One of those will fit your unique style and your unique shape. While the other one, well, it kind of restricts your movement, kind of restricts your creativity. But this brings up an interesting question about control, because let's be honest, sometimes these systems aren't really about efficiency at all, are they? No, no, no. Sometimes they're much more personal, like the founder's need for control. Anyway, I've seen this happen time and time again. Founders who've built something amazing, and they've built it from nothing, let's be honest, and God love them, but now they're trying to hold on so tight, they might actually be strangling their business to death. And it's like they've forgotten that the same two amazing hands in mind that built this business might need to just loosen that grip just a bit so that it can grow and scale. And I get it. When you've poured your heart and your soul and every fiber of your being and your blood and your sweat and your tears into something, letting go feels like you're losing control. But here's the thing. Maybe that control is actually controlling you.
Yeah, that's the founders usually where things, I don't want to say start to go awry, but there's definitely founders can set good intentions, good foundations for their business, especially when you're growing, when you have a couple employees, when you have your first 10, 15, 20, 50. Mm-hmm. You set the tone, you set the expectations. A lot of the work around systematization, it involves workplace culture, the norms of how the work's done, and yes, codifying how the work's done. And so where you need things to be done very precisely, a very particular way so that you can replicate the outcomes. When you have a founder, when you have an entrepreneur, they figured out the secret sauce. Sometimes still evolving, but by and large, you have to figure out the secret sauce before you grow too large. And with that comes, how do you replicate that secret sauce? A lot of folks get stuck in that middle ground where they have 1, 2, 5 employees, but they're still hands-on in everything. Everything about the secret sauce lives in their head. And that keeps them stuck. That's the real disconnect where people can't grow beyond a certain point, usually early on. And sometimes it happens later, but very, very often it's early in the business where they're not letting go, not figuring out what they can systematize, what they can't, what the actual ingredients of the recipe are.
Yeah, that one really hits home a little bit, doesn't it? That secret sauce, that special thing that made your business successful in the first place, it's like trying to protect your grandmother's secret recipe. Yeah, for sugar cookies in my case. But here's the irony. By keeping it all locked up in your head or all locked up in some file cabinet in your basement back in the corner, you're actually limiting. I've been on both sides of the equation. I've been that person that has desperately been trying to hold on to every aspect of my business, but I've also been the one who's learned to let go. And you know what? That letting go part, it's not just about delegating tasks. It's just not about creating systems. It's just not about hiring the right people. It's about something a little deeper. It's about identity. Think about it. Yeah. When you've been that person doing everything, think about when you were that person doing everything, making every decision, solving every problem, hiring everybody, it becomes who you are. And letting go, well, that means becoming someone new. It means evolving from being the person who does everything to the person who empowers others to do things. That's where the real challenge lies. But here's the question that keeps coming up in my conversations with successful entrepreneurs. How do you make that shift? How do you evolve from being the doer to being the leader? Because let's be honest, those are two very different mindsets. And when we talk about business growth, everyone focuses on the tactical stuff, the systems, the hiring, the operations, the people, and blah, 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 right? All the gears. But what we don't talk about enough is that damn mental game, right? That amazing tool right between your ears. The mindset shifts that have to happen before any of those tactical changes will stick.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, my brain went so many different directions in terms of the spectrum of folks. Sometimes people, honestly, sometimes people just need someone to talk to and talk it through, an expert to just guide them through the right way. I've had plenty of clients who are overworked and overwhelmed, and
Mhm.
they just need a little bit of guidance, a little bit of direction, a couple steps through the path, and then and then they're good, and then they're kind of like winding up, moving forward up the spiral towards having more freedom, more time in their business. Other people, we have to unwind a lot of things that have gone on in their past life. It could be shame about things that they haven't done well in their business. It could be
Yeah.
guilt about their current situation. There could be some financial strain because they are working so many hours, but sometimes I talk to entrepreneurs who are still making $10 an hour because they're working so many hours. Their profit margin's so small still, and their hours are so large that they're just not where they need to be. And there's so much of this negative emotional space that's taking up a lot of it's creating a lot of baggage for people needing to move forward.
Now that reminds me so much of my military history. And stay with me here because this connects in a fascinating way. Throughout history, we've seen military leaders who've had to evolve their thinking to meet new challenges on the battlefield, new challenges off the battlefield. They couldn't keep using the same strategies that worked in previous battles. Otherwise, they would lose their entire squad, their entire battalion. They had to adapt, they had to evolve. And sometimes they had to completely reinvent their approach. There's an example I remember of the Japanese. I believe it was the Japanese that came up with this new aircraft that was way faster than anything we had. So a innovative pilot had to come up with a new approach on how they could beat that more nimble, more faster aircraft with ours. You know what? They did it, and this tactic is still being used today because it still works. And that's exactly what we're talking about here with entrepreneurial leadership. It's not about working harder or working longer or working smarter or working wiser. It's about fundamentally changing how we think about our role. Sometimes that drive to succeed, that relentless push forward, comes from a place we don't even realize. And that place is our past experiences, our early struggles, and our need to prove something. But here's the real question. What happens when that drive, that determination that got you to where you are, starts to become the very thing holding you back from where you're trying to go? You know, I'm about to ask something that might make some of you uncomfortable, but sometimes the most important questions, those are the ones that make us squirm, that make us sit up and go, shit, how do I answer that? And here it is. What percentage of successful entrepreneurs, and I'm using air quotes here because success can look different to you versus me, what percentage are actually miserable? Think about it. How many have built profitable prisons that they can't escape from? You maybe? Someone you know? Where their entire identity is now tied to the successful venture that they created.
Yeah. Well, and the question was about what percent, and
Yeah,
I
what
don't have the exact
percent?
percent,
Uh,
but it's a lot. I would say nearly everybody that I work with, when we talk about the kind of qualities and traits of folks who do well to
mhm.
navigate this transition, part of it's being resourceful. To get back to another thing we talked about earlier, but
Sure.
if you're resourceful about solving it, you can figure out a way to solve it. But at the end of the day, if it's not working for you, if you built this prison, it's very likely that if you're feeling stuck, if you don't do something that, I don't want to say drastic, but if you don't do something significant about changing your circumstances, nothing's magically going to change. You might still be
Right.
making a lot of revenue. You might still then be working a lot of hours. If you don't really dig deep and get resourceful about how to fix it, and something else we talked about, a big reason why. Why do you need to do this? Why do you need to do this now? Because if you're working 60, 80, 100 hours a week and it feels overwhelming and you're just not sure what to do to get out of this prison, where can you find the time to focus in on systematizing the business and getting yourself out of the business?
Mm-hmm.
This is why people stay stuck, is because they're both overworked, overwhelmed, they have brain fog, they're dealing with this with working tons of hours, but they're not the most productive hours just because they're dealing with this low energy
Yeah.
state that they've gotten themselves into, a downward spiral in their energy and their focus and their business. And they're just trying to keep everything afloat, but keeping their business afloat feels like it takes 60, 80, 100 hours a week, right? And so those are the folks that I tend to encounter the most often. If you want to fix this before before that point, that's ideal. But a lot of the
Yeah.
time, you need to have a strong reason why. You kind of get to your breaking point and say, well, I can tell I'm getting overwhelmed here. I feel like I'm heading towards burnout, or I'm already there. And I feel like maybe I only have 4 months left or 6 months left. Like I can't see going another year in this state. I just can't. My health
Mhm.
can't hold out. My marriage can't hold out because I'm bringing that stress home and things have already been tense, or there's financial tightness in the business because of these things, keeping the business afloat, keeping your head above water, high revenue but also high cost, and just not having that time to really sit down and figure it out. And so at the end of the day, you need to have a strong reason why, kind of put your stick in the ground, flag in the ground, and say, this is it, line in the sand, and say, I need to figure this out. I need to do something to make this different. And I need to dig deep and get resourceful because I am tired. I'm overwhelmed. But if I don't change anything, then it's just going to continue. And the worst case scenario, as you said in the intro, you could die sitting in that chair in your office
Yeah.
after working another 80-hour week that you have been for years. Your marriage could fall apart because you're never home, or when you're home, you're bringing work home and you're never really present. It could be your relationship with your kids. Kids are only young once, and so all of that time you're losing, it just continues, and that may impact your relationship for years to come. And so there's real stakes in the ground when we talk about, just because you want to have work-life balance, you want to have a successful business.
Let me add something here that's crucial about our kids. Something that took me 60 some odd years on this big blue spinning globe that we live on to fully understand. Our children aren't just watching us succeed. They're not just watching us fail. They're watching how we handle pressure. They're watching how we deal with stress. They're watching how we treat our time. They're watching how we treat our friends, our family, our peers, our subordinates. They're watching how we balance our priorities. You see, here's the thing, and I've said this, I believe, before here on this show. While you're writing your chapter of success, you're actually helping them write the first pages of theirs. Think about that for a moment. Every time you skip a family dinner for a crucial meeting, again, more air quotes, every time you check your phone during your kids' cheer competition, and every time that you bring your work stress home, you're teaching them something about what success looks like. And here's the scary part: they might just repeat the same damn patterns in their own lives. So, this isn't about guilt. Don't get me wrong. We've all made those choices. I have, you have, and if you haven't, you probably will. It's about awareness. It's about understanding that sometimes what we think is dedication to providing our family might actually be disconnecting us from them. And maybe, just maybe, that's the highest price of success that no one talks about. Ah, okay, so that brings us down to today's whiskered wisdom, that one actual takeaway that you can implement right now so that you can start making positive changes in your business, in your life. And here it is. Take what I call the 3-column audit. You could be the 3-circle audit. Let's go with the 3-circle audit. Grab a piece of paper and draw 3 overlapping circles. You've seen it: circle here, circle there, right next to it, and a circle down below those two, forming like a triangle, and there's a section in the middle. And here's what I want you to do. In the first circle, write down everything in your business that only you can do. And I mean truly what only you can do. And in the second circle, write all the things that you love doing. Now, there may be some repeats, right? These are 2 different topics. In that second circle, reset and write down all the things that you love to do. Those tasks that energize you, that make you just fired up. You can't wait to do them because they just make you fly. They make your heart sing. All right, got it? Now, in the bottom circle, I want you to write all the things that actually bring the most value to your business, i.e., the real money-making activities. Got it? Now, here's where things get interesting. I want you to look where the 3 circles technically overlap, where you see those repeated things. That's the sweet spot. Where all 3 of those circles have the same topic, that, my friend, that's your zone of genius. That's where you should be spending your time. And if you didn't write them in that little bitty spot in the bottom, I want you to go through and just circle the topics that show up in each circle. Yeah? Now, this is where you should be spending your time. Everything else, those are the things that you start systematizing, and those are the things that you start delegating or outsourcing, however you want to do it. But here's the kicker, and this is something Eric really drove home today. Give yourself a deadline. Pick one thing that's outside of your zone of genius that you're going to delegate or systematize, and date it and get it done in the next 30 days. Just one thing, not 10, not 12, not 47. Because if you don't put a stake in the ground right now, as you're listening to this podcast, maybe set that date in your head. Here's what you're going to do. You're going to keep pushing it off, and you're going to keep pushing it off, and you're going to keep pushing it off until you're too damn overwhelmed to make any changes at all. Here's the thing I want you to remember. This isn't about perfection. It's about progress. You don't have to transform your entire damn business overnight. You need to take one step. Take that first step right now towards breaking out of your profitable prison. Today's conversation with Eric really kind of pulled back the curtain on something that I don't think we talk about enough in the entrepreneurial world. How success can sometimes build its own kind of trap, its own prison, as he called it. But more importantly, we learned it doesn't have to stay that way. And if you found value in this conversation, and you can catch the full uncut interview with Eric over on my YouTube channel. I'll drop the link down in the show notes. I highly recommend you check it out because we dive deeper into some of these concepts and we just couldn't fit it all into this podcast episode by itself. And speaking of value, if you're serious about transforming your entrepreneurial journey, whether you're just starting out or restarting, or maybe you're looking to kickstart things to the next level, I got something special for you. It's called the Dark Horse Insider Digital Marketing Newsletter. That's a mouthful. I get it. But it's not your typical rehashed, outdated marketing tips kind of newsletter. No. This is a fresh, current, actionable content delivered straight to your inbox. We're talking about real strategies that work right now to help you make money online and transform your side hustle into your main hustle. No fluff, no outdated tactics, just pure, actionable value that you can implement right away. Just head on over to darkhorseschooling.com/newsletter to sign up. Again, link will be down in the show notes. Just go ahead and click right through. That'll take you right there. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, success shouldn't feel like a prison. Sometimes the key to breaking free is simply having the right information at the right time. So until next time, this is your humble host, Tracy Brinkman, reminding you to think successfully and take action.